The coffee shop buzzed with the usual morning energy, but Marcus Chen barely noticed the familiar chaos around him. He sat hunched over his laptop in the corner booth, fingers dancing across the keyboard with practiced precision, lines of code. Scrolled down the screen, legent, complex, and completely invisible to the casual observer. "Oh my God, you guys won't believe what happened last night." A voice cut through the ambient noise like a blade. Marcus's fingers froze. He knew that voice. Sarah Mitchell, his ex-girlfriend of 3 years, sat just 2 tables away with her usual crowd of friends. She hadn't seen him yet, hidden as he was behind his laptop screen in the strategic placement of a large potted plant. "I finally did it," Sarah continued, her voice dripping with theatrical satisfaction. "I dumped Marcus." A chorus of gasps and excited chatter erupted from her table. Marcus felt his jaw clench, but he forced himself to remain still. He'd learned long ago that sometimes the most valuable intelligence came from simply listening. "About time, Jessica," Sarah's best friend practically squealed. "I mean, what was he even doing with his life? All that computer stuff nobody understands? Right?" Sarah's laughter was sharp, cutting. "I told him last night that I needed someone with actual ambition, someone who matters in the real world. He just sat there like a deer in headlights." Marcus's fingers found the keyboard again, but this time he wasn't coding. He was accessing something far more interesting, a secure server that very few people knew existed. The screen filled with classified documents, financial records, and communication logs that would make most people's blood run cold. "He was so pathetic," Sarah continued, apparently on a roll. "Sitting in his little apartment, playing with his computers like some kind of child. I need a man who can actually provide for me, you know? Someone important." The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. If only she knew what those computer games actually were. If only she understood that the quiet, unassuming man she'd just humiliated in front of her friends was currently reviewing intelligence reports that would determine the fate of several international operations. "So what did you tell him?" asked Monica, another member of Sarah's inner circle. "I told him the truth," Sarah replied, her voice gaining momentum. "That he was boring, that he had no future, and that I was embarrassed to be seen with him. Should have seen his face." Marcus closed the classified files and opened a different window, his actual job profile. Senior cybersecurity analyst at a mid-level tech company, according to his LinkedIn. Decent salary, respectable position, nothing that would turn heads. At a cocktail party. It was the perfect cover. His phone buzzed softly. A text from his handler. "Operation Nightfall approved. You have 48 hours. Marcus smiled grimly. 48 hours to take down a network of international arms? Dealers who'd been using encrypted communications to coordinate weapons sales across 3 continents. The same network that had been trying to recruit inside sources from major tech companies, the same network that had unknowingly targeted Sarah's new boyfriend. "I heard Rebecca's brother is single," Jessica was saying. "He's a lawyer, makes good money, very respectable." "Actually," Sarah's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, "I already have someone in mind. This amazing guy I met at that networking event last week. He's got connections, real influence. We're going out tomorrow night." Marcus's blood ran cold. He knew exactly who she was talking about, Viktor Petrov. A Russian businessman who'd been flagged by multiple intelligence agencies. The man who was, according to Marcus's most recent briefing, the financial mastermind behind the arms dealing. Operation Sarah had just walked straight into the middle of his mission. What do you think will happen next? Share your predictions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more thrilling stories. Marcus waited until Sarah and her friends left before making his move. He had exactly 36 hours before his date with Viktor Petrov, and now the stakes had become personal in a way that made his training scream warnings. His apartment was a study in careful contradictions. To a casual visitor, it looked like the modest home of a mid-level tech worker, basic furniture, a few gaming consoles, stacks of programming books, but hidden behind false walls and encrypted drives was equipment that would make most intelligence agencies jealous. Marcus activated his secure communication system and placed a call to his handler, Director Elizabeth Hayes. "We have a problem," he said without preamble when her face appeared on the encrypted video link. "What kind of problem?" Hayes asked, her expression immediately sharpening. She was a woman in her 50s, with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. "My ex-girlfriend just became collateral damage. She's dating Viktor Petrov." There was a long pause. "How do you know this?" Marcus quickly explained the coffee shop encounter, watching Hayes' expression grow increasingly grim. "This complicates things," she said finally. "We can't have civilian casualties, especially not someone with a direct connection to you. It could blow your cover." "I know." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "But there's more. From what I overheard, she's completely unaware of who he really is. She thinks he's just some wealthy businessman with connections. Which means she's the perfect unwitting asset," Hayes finished. "Petrov's probably planning to use her to get closer to tech industry contacts. He has no idea he's targeting the wrong person." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "You suggesting?" "I'm suggesting," Hayes said carefully, "that we might be able to use this situation to our advantage, but it would require you to get close to her again, close enough to monitor the situation and extract her when the time comes." "She just spent 20 minutes telling her friends how pathetic and worthless I am," Marcus said dryly. "I don't think she's going to welcome me back with open arms." "Then you'll have to give her a reason to reconsider," Hayes replied. "Much does she know about your real work?" "She thinks I'm exactly what my cover says. I am a boring it guy who plays with computers all day." Hayes smiled, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. "Then it's time for Marcus, the IT guy, to have a very good week. Over the next 18 hours, Marcus put a plan into motion that would have impressed his instructors at Langley. Using his legitimate position at the tech company as a springboard, he began orchestrating a series of coincidences that would reshape how the world saw him. The first domino fell when his routine security analysis uncovered a major vulnerability. In a popular social media platform, a vulnerability that just happened to be making headlines across every major news outlet by morning. Marcus Chen, senior cybersecurity analyst, suddenly the expert everyone wanted to interview. The second domino was a carefully timed stock transaction. Marcus had been tracking the financial movements of Petrov's organization for months, and he knew exactly which tech companies were about to see major gains. A few strategic investments, using information that wasn't quite classified, and his portfolio exploded overnight. By the time Sarah was getting ready for her date with Viktor Petrov, Marcus had given 3 television interviews, been quoted in The Wall Street Journal, and received a promotion offer from a major Silicon Valley firm, all while maintaining his cover as a simple cybersecurity analyst who just had an extraordinary stroke of luck. But the real masterstroke came when he hacked into the exclusive restaurant where Sarah was having dinner with predators. Marcus sat in his car across the street, watching through the restaurant's own security cameras as Sarah and Viktor shared what appeared to be an intimate conversation. He couldn't hear the audio, but he could see Viktor's practiced charm at work the way he leaned in. The calculated touches, the expensive gifts that appeared throughout the evening. What Viktor didn't know was that Marcus had been tracking his communications for weeks. Every encrypted message, every financial transaction, every coded instruction to his network of arms dealers. Marcus had it all, including the message that had come through just an hour ago. Target acquired. Tech sector penetration proceeding ahead of schedule. Asset shows potential for long-term cultivation. Sarah wasn't just a date, she was a mission. Marcus's fingers flew across his laptop keyboard, accessing systems that officially didn't exist. If Viktor wanted to play games with an innocent woman, Marcus would show him what a real player looked like. The restaurant's sound system crackled to life, interrupting the soft jazz with an emergency broadcast. "This is a special report from Channel 7 News. We're here with cybersecurity expert Marcus Chen, who's just uncovered what authorities are calling the largest digital security breach in corporate history." Marcus watched through the camera as Sarah's face went white. On the screen, he saw himself professional, articulate, and clearly much more important than she'd ever imagined. Viktor's expression was harder to read, but Marcus caught the flicker of concern in the man's eyes. He was starting to wonder if his carefully chosen target had more complicated connections than he'd anticipated. Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. "We need to talk. The tension is building." If you're enjoying this story, hit that like button and let me know in the comments which character you're rooting for. Your support helps me create more incredible stories like this one. Marcus arrived at the coffee shop, the same one where Sarah had humiliated him just 2 days earlier. Find her waiting in the corner booth. She looked different somehow, less confident, more vulnerable. Her friends were nowhere to be seen. "Marcus," she said as he approached, her voice uncertain, I saw the news." He sat down across from her, noting how she seemed to study his face as if seeing him for the first time. "Which news would that be?" "All of it." She gestured helplessly. "The interviews, the promotion offer, the stock portfolio." "I had no idea you were so... successful." Marcus said nothing, letting the silence stretch between them. He'd learned that sometimes the most powerful weapon in an interrogation was simply waiting for the other person to fill the void. "I think I made a mistake," Sarah continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I said some things... the things I shouldn't have said. Things that weren't true." "What things?" Marcus asked, though he knew exactly what things. Sarah's cheeks flushed. "About you being boring. About not having ambition. About not being important." She paused, then added quietly, "About being embarrassed to be seen with you." Marcus leaned back in his chair, studying her. "And what changed your mind?" "Seeing you on television. Realizing that while I was complaining about you playing with computers, you were actually..." "What exactly do you do, Marcus? I mean, what do you really do?" It was a fair question, and one that Marcus had been preparing for. The truth was impossible, but a version of the truth might work. "I analyze digital threats," he said carefully. "I help companies and organizations protect themselves from people who would use technology to hurt others. The cybersecurity work. You saw in the news, that's what I do every day." "You never told me any of this," Sarah said, confusion evident in her voice. "You always made it sound so... ordinary." "Because it is ordinary to me," Marcus replied. "It's my job. I didn't think you'd be interested in the technical details." Sarah was quiet for a long moment. "I was wrong," she said finally. "I was wrong. About a lot of things, and I'm sorry." Marcus felt a stab of something that might have been guilt. Sarah's apology was genuine, but it was based on a fundamental misunderstanding of who he was and what he did. She was apologizing to Marcus, the cybersecurity analyst, not Marcus, the intelligence operative. "There's something else," Sarah continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Something that's been bothering me since last night." Marcus tensed. "What is it?" "Victor, the man I've been seeing, he asked me a lot of questions about you.
That.
Your work, your friends, your connections in the tech industry. At first I thought he was just being polite, but now..." She shook her head. "It felt like he was interviewing me." This was the moment Marcus had been both hoping for and dreading. Sarah was smart enough to sense that something was wrong, but she had no idea how wrong. "What kind of questions?" he asked. "Whether you had access to corporate networks? Whether you worked with government contracts? Whether you had friends at other tech companies?" Sarah's voice was getting smaller. "I told him everything I knew, which wasn't much, but still." Marcus felt the familiar cold weight of operational necessity settling in his chest. Sarah wasn't just an innocent bystander anymore. She was a security risk who'd already compromised his cover without knowing it. "Sarah," he said carefully, "I need you to listen to me very carefully. I don't think Victor is who he says he is." Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I think he's using you to get information about people in the tech industry."
People.
"Like me. That's ridiculous," Sarah said, but her voice lacked conviction. "He's a businessman. He has a legitimate interest in technology." Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her a photo of Victor Petrov at a charity gala, looking distinguished and wealthy. "Is this him?" "Yes," but Marcus swiped to the next photo. Victor in grainy surveillance footage, meeting with known arms dealers in a warehouse in Prague. "How about this?" Sarah's face went pale. "Where did you get these?" "From sources I can't discuss," Marcus said, which was technically true. Sarah, I think you're in danger. Real danger. I don't understand, she whispered. If you knew about this, why didn't you tell me sooner? It was a fair question, and one that Marcus couldn't answer honestly. He couldn't tell her that he'd been tracking Victor for months, that he'd known about their relationship almost from the beginning, or that he was planning to take down Victor's entire organization in the next 12 hours. I only confirmed it today, he said instead. When you told me about the questions he was asking, Sarah stared at the photos on his phone, her hands shaking slightly. What am I supposed to do? You're supposed to stay away from him, Marcus? Said firmly. Block his number. Don't go to places where he might find you. Definitely don't give him any more information about anyone you know. But what if he comes looking for me? Marcus met her eyes. Then you call me immediately. Day or night, doesn't matter. I'll handle it. There was something in his voice that made Sarah look at him differently, a note of authority and competence that she'd never heard before. You sound like you know how to handle dangerous people. I do, Marcus said simply. As Sarah left the coffee shop, Marcus remained in his seat, processing what had just happened. In the space of 48 hours, he'd gone from being the pathetic ex-boyfriend she was embarrassed to know to being the person she turned to for protection. But the real test was still to come. His phone buzzed with a message. From Director Hayes. Petrov's moving up the timeline. The exchange is happening tonight instead of tomorrow. Are you ready? Marcus typed back. Ready? What he didn't tell his handler was that Sarah had just walked into the middle of a war zone, and he was the only thing standing between her and a man who killed people for a living. The quiet, unassuming IT guy was about to disappear forever. The abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city looked like 1,000 other forgotten industrial buildings, but Marcus knew better. Through his night vision scope, he could see the careful placement of guards, the subtle modifications to the loading docks, and the expensive cars that had no business being in this part of town. Viktor Petrov's arms-dealing operation was conducting its biggest transaction of the year, and Marcus was about to bring it all crashing down. Phoenix, this is Control. Director Hayes' voice crackled through his earpiece. You have green light for Operation Nightfall. All units are in position. Marcus adjusted his position on the roof of a neighboring building, checking his equipment. One final time. In 6 hours, this would all be over. Victor would be in custody, his network would be dismantled. Marcus could go back to being a boring IT guy, except his phone was ringing. Marcus. Sarah's voice was panicked, barely controlled. I need help, Victor. He's here. He's at my apartment. Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. What do you mean he's there? Showed up about an hour ago? He's been asking questions about? You, about your work. He says he knows we met today, and he wants to know what you told me. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. Marcus, I think he has a gun. Through his scope, Marcus could see Victor's men moving crates inside the warehouse. The operation was in full swing, and his team was counting on him to provide overwatch and technical support. But Sarah was in immediate danger, and there was no one else who could help her. Where are you now? He asked. Locked in my bathroom. He thinks I'm getting ready to go out with him, but I'm scared. When I mentioned your name, his whole demeanor changed. He became ... cold. Marcus was already moving, packing his equipment with practiced efficiency. I'm coming to get you. Stay. Exactly where you are, and don't make any noise. But Marcus, no buts. I'm 20 minutes away. Can you stay hidden for 20 minutes? I think so, but then do it. Whatever you do, don't let him know you called me. Marcus was rappelling down the side of the building when his earpiece crackled to life again. Phoenix, where are you going? The operation is about to commence. Control, I have a civilian in immediate danger. One of Petrov's men is holding her hostage. Phoenix, you cannot compromise the mission for one civilian. We have 3 international agencies coordinating this operation. Marcus hit the ground running, heading for his motorcycle. Then you'll have to run it without me. Marcus, that's an order. I'm sorry, Director. Yes. But some things are more important than orders. He cut the communication and focused on the road ahead. Sarah's apartment was across town, and every second counted. What Marcus didn't know was that his conversation with Sarah had been monitored by Victor's technical team. The arms dealer had suspected that Sarah's ex-boyfriend might be more than he seemed, and the sudden appearance of a cybersecurity expert who'd made national news was too much of a coincidence. Victor had done his homework. Marcus Chen worked for Meridian Tech, a company that held several government contracts. His recent media appearances suggested access to high-level information systems. And most importantly, he'd somehow known enough about Victor to warn Sarah away. Either Marcus was an intelligence operative, or he was a valuable asset who could be turned. Victor intended to find out which Marcus arrived at Sarah's apartment building to find the front door unlocked and the security cameras mysteriously offline. Every instinct screamed trap, but he couldn't leave Sarah inside with a known killer. He made his way up the stairs, noting the subtle signs of surveillance scuff marks on the floor, a door that had been recently forced, the smell of cigarettes. In a building where smoking was prohibited, Sarah's apartment door was ajar. Marcus drew his sidearm and slipped inside, using hand signals and movement patterns that would have been impossible to explain to anyone who knew him as a simple IT worker. The apartment was too quiet, too still. "Sarah?" he called softly. And here came a voice from the living room. But it wasn't Sarah's voice. Marcus rounded the corner to find Viktor Petrov sitting calmly in Sarah's favorite armchair, looking perfectly at ease. Sarah was beside him on the couch, unharmed but clearly terrified. "Mr. Chen," Victor said in accented English, "please, come in. We have much to discuss." Marcus kept his weapon trained on Victor, noting the positions of two other men who'd emerged from the kitchen and bedroom. Professional muscle, probably armed, definitely dangerous. "Let her go," Marcus said. "This is between you and me." Victor smiled. "But Mr. Chen, she is the reason we are here. Sarah has been most helpful in learning about your ... capabilities." "I didn't tell him anything important," Sarah said quickly. "Just what I knew about your work, which isn't much." "On the contrary," Victor replied. "You told us quite a lot. For instance, you mentioned that Marcus knew about my business interests before you told him about our relationship. This suggests access to information that would be very valuable. To the right people, Marcus saw where this was going." "You want to recruit me?" "I want to offer you an opportunity," Victor corrected. "Your skills, combined with your legitimate position in the tech industry, could be worth millions to my organization. It's much more than whatever the government is paying you." "I don't work for the government," Marcus said. Victor's smile widened. "Mr. Chen, I've been in this business for 20 years. I know what government operatives look like, and I know what they sound like when they're trying to maintain their cover." The standoff might have continued indefinitely, but Marcus's earpiece suddenly crackled to life. "Phoenix, this is Control. The warehouse is compromised. Petrov's men are scattering. We need your location immediately." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Phoenix? How interesting. That's not a name I would expect from a cybersecurity analyst." Marcus realized that his cover was blown, his mission was compromised, and Sarah was about to learn exactly who he really was. In the space of 30 seconds, everything he'd worked for was falling apart. But sometimes the best solution was the most direct one. "Sarah," he said calmly, "close your eyes and count to 10. What are you? Just do it. Trust me." Sarah squeezed. Her eyes shut, and Marcus moved. 20 years of training compressed into 5 seconds of precise, devastating action. The first gunman went down with a nerve strike that left him unconscious but alive. The second managed to draw his weapon before Marcus's throw knife found its mark in his shoulder. Sending the gun clattering across the floor, Victor reached for his own weapon. But Marcus was already there, the barrel of his pistol pressed against the arms dealer's temple. "Game over," Marcus said quietly. Victor slowly raised his hands, but his expression was more amused than frightened. "Very impressive, Mr. Chen. Or should I say, Agent Chen. Oh, Sarah, you can open your eyes now." She did, and her gasp was audible. The quiet, unassuming man she'd dumped 3 days earlier was standing over 3 unconscious criminals, completely in control of a situation that would have sent most people running. "Marcus," she whispered. "What? ... Who are you?" Before he could answer, the apartment door burst open, and 6 federal agents in tactical gear swarmed in, weapons drawn. Federal agents. Everyone on the ground? It's okay, Marcus called out. Phoenix, the situation is secure. The lead agent, a woman Marcus recognized from his briefings, approached, cautiously. Agent Chen, we've been looking for you. Director Hayes is not pleased that you went dark during the operation. The operation was compromised the moment Sarah became a target, Marcus replied. I made a judgment call. A judgment call that cost us Viktor Petrov's entire network, the agent said sharply. They scattered when you didn't provide overwatch. Marcus looked at Viktor, who was now in handcuffs but still smiling. Did we get them all? Most of them. But the financial records were destroyed, and several key players escaped. The agent's expression was grim. This is going to take months to unravel. As the federal agents led Viktor away, he paused next to Marcus. You chose well, Agent Chen. I hope she was worth it. After the apartment was cleared and the official statements were taken, Marcus found himself alone with Sarah in the hallway. Outside her door, I don't understand any of this, she said. 3 days ago, you were a cybersecurity analyst. Now you're some kind of federal agent? Who are you really? Marcus sat down on the hallway floor, suddenly exhausted. I'm both. The cybersecurity job is real. It's just not the only thing I do. And the other thing? It's to people like Viktor from hurting innocent people. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. That's why you were so calm when I told you about his questions. You already knew who he was. I've been tracking him for months, Marcus admitted. I knew about your relationship almost from the beginning. And you didn't tell me? I couldn't. My cover depended on no one knowing who I really was, including you. Sarah sat down beside him, processing everything that had happened. So when? I was telling my friends how pathetic and boring you were. I was literally reading classified intelligence reports, Marcus finished, but I couldn't tell you that. And when I said you had no ambition, I was planning an operation that would take down an international arms-dealing network. Sarah put her head in her hands. I feel like the biggest fool in the world. You're not a fool, Marcus said gently. You're a civilian who got caught up in something way beyond your control. That's not your fault. But I said those things about you in public, in front of people. Marcus smiled for the first time since this all began. Funny thing about that, I ran into Jessica and Monica at the grocery store this morning. They seemed very impressed with my television interviews. What did they say? They asked if I was single. Sarah looked at him sharply. What did you tell them? I told them I was focused on my work right now. Marcus paused. I also told them that anyone who judged people based on their job titles probably wasn't someone I'd be interested in dating. Ouch. But, Marcus continued, I also told them that I had a lot of respect for people who were brave enough to admit when they were wrong. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Is that what I'm doing? Admitting I was wrong? I don't know, Marcus said honestly. What do you think? I think, Sarah said slowly, that I spent 3 years dating someone without ever really knowing who he was, and I think that's partly your fault for not trusting me with the truth, but mostly my fault for not caring enough to look deeper. And now I'm wondering if it's too late to start over. Marcus stood up and offered her his hand. That depends. Are you ready to date someone whose job you can't tell your friends about? Someone who might disappear for weeks at a time on assignments you can't know about. Someone whose life is complicated in ways that would make your head spin. Sarah took his hand and stood up. Are you asking me out, Agent Chen? I'm asking if you want to have dinner with Marcus, the cybersecurity analyst, he said. Agent Chen is off duty. What about Agent Phoenix? Marcus paused. Phoenix is retired. As of tonight, I'm requesting a transfer to domestic cybersecurity. No more international operations, no more deep cover assignments, just a normal job protecting people from digital threats. Because of me? Because tonight I learned that some things are more important than the mission, Marcus said. And because I'm tired of living a life where the people I care about don't know who I really am? Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile he'd seen from her since this all began. In that case, Marcus, the cybersecurity analyst, I would love to have dinner with you. As they walked down the hallway together, Marcus felt lighter than he had in years. Tomorrow, he would face the consequences of his choices with Director Hayes. Tomorrow, He would begin the process of transitioning to a normal life. But tonight, for the first time in 3 days, he was exactly who he appeared to be. The coffee shop was exactly the same, but everything else had changed. Marcus sat in the corner booth, not hiding behind a laptop this time, but reading a physical newspaper like a normal person. The headline on the business section read, "Cybersecurity expert Marcus Chen launches new consulting firm." "Marcus," a familiar voice called out. He looked up to see Jessica and Monica approaching his table, both wearing expressions of nervous excitement. "Ladies," he said, standing politely. "How are you?" "We're good," Jessica said, though she seemed uncertain. "We heard about your new business. Congratulations." "Thank you." "And we heard," Monica added, "that you and Sarah are back together." Marcus confirmed. "We're taking things slow. But yes, we're seeing each other again." "Oh, that's wonderful," Jessica said, though her tone suggested she wasn't sure if wonderful was the right word. "She's lucky to have you," Marcus smiled. "I'm lucky to have her." There was an awkward pause, then Monica spoke up. "Marcus, we owe you an apology. We said some things. We didn't really know who you were." "No apology necessary," Marcus said, "but I appreciate it." "We were wondering," Jessica said hesitantly, "if you might be interested in having coffee sometime. Just to talk, I mean. We'd love to learn more about your work." Marcus considered this. 6 months ago, he might have been tempted. Jessica and Monica were attractive, successful women, who were now showing him the kind of attention he'd never received before. But 6 months ago, he'd been a different person. "I appreciate the invitation," he said politely, "but I'm not available." Monica said, looking disappointed. "Well, if things don't work out with Sarah, they will," Marcus said with quiet confidence. "But thank you for thinking of me." As the two women walked away, Marcus returned to his newspaper. The story about his consulting firm was accurate, but incomplete. It didn't mention that his primary client was the FBI, that he was now helping to train the next generation of cybersecurity operatives. It also didn't mention that he'd received a commendation for his work on the Viktor Petrov case, despite the complications his personal involvement had created. "Reading about yourself again?" Sarah's voice was warm, amused. Marcus looked up to see her standing beside his table, 2 coffee cups in her hands. "Just keeping up with current events," he said, accepting the cup she offered. "Thank you." Sarah slid into the booth across from him. "I saw Jessica and Monica leaving. They looked ... subdued. They invited me to coffee, and I told them I wasn't available." Sarah smiled. "Good answer, I thought so." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the morning crowd rush past the window. "Any regrets?" Sarah asked. Marcus considered the question. 6 months ago, he'd been Agent Phoenix, a ghost who slipped through the world without leaving traces. Now he was Marcus Chen, small business owner, whose biggest excitement was debugging software vulnerabilities. "None," he said, and meant it. Even about giving up the spy life. "It was never really a life," Marcus said. "It was just a job that kept me from having a life." Sarah reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm glad you chose differently." So, AM1, as they sat together in the coffee shop where this had all begun, Marcus reflected on how much had changed. Sarah's friends now called him Sir when they saw him, partly out of respect for his professional success, but mostly because they'd learned to treat him with the consideration they should have shown all along. Viktor Petrov was serving 25 to life in a federal prison. His network had been dismantled, his assets seized, and his remaining associates scattered to the winds. And Marcus Chen, his former Agent Phoenix, was having a perfectly ordinary morning with the woman he loved. It was, he decided, the best mission he'd ever completed. What did you think of this thrilling journey? Share your favorite moment in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest tales. What kind of story would you like to hear next?